Welcome to today's webinar, Top Advisors Reveal How They Mastered Social Media, presented by Mark Schoenbeck of Kestra Financial, Ted Jenkin of Oxygen Financial, Liz Hand of Pleasant Wealth, and Derek Jackson of Riley Wealth Management. My name is Bob Upshur. I am the founder and CEO of Advisor Perspectives, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Digital marketing is the center of any successful marketing strategy, and social media plays a significant role in that outreach. Social media is a low-cost, high-impact marketing strategy that gives you the opportunity to reach prospects and existing clients where they already spend much of their time. Our panel of advisors will share stories of how they grew their practices and tips for how you can too. We're going to begin with a polling question that will be on your screen momentarily. I'll read it to you. What has been your experience with social media as a marketing tactic? And your choices are: you use it regularly, it's highly successful; use it occasionally, it doesn't work well; you stop using it because you didn't get results; you stop using it for some other reason; or you've never tried it. So while you're answering that, let me introduce our speakers. Mark Schoenbeck is Executive Vice President of Advisor Engagement at Kestra Financial. Ted Jenkin is CEO of Oxygen Financial in Atlanta, Georgia. Liz Hand is a financial planner and life coach with Pleasant Wealth in Canton, Ohio. And Derek Jackson is a managing advisor with Riley Wealth Management in Flagstaff, Arizona. This presentation is approved for financial professionals only. We will report your IWI CE credits on your behalf once your attendance has been verified. This is not approved for CFP CE. Please review the instructions for the reporting process for IWI CE credits through the Q&A window, which are being sent out now. All right, let's take a look at the results of that poll. And it looks like 43% have used social media occasionally. It doesn't work very well. 29% have never tried it. And about 12% have either stopped using it because they didn't get results or use it regularly because it's highly successful. And a small percent, 4%, stopped using it for some other reason. Today's webinar will consist of approximately 40 minutes of discussion with Mark, Ted, Liz, and Derek. We'll then open it up to questions. We'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. To submit a question, please use the Q&A box on your webinar console. And if you encounter a problem with the audio, or if it appears that the slide deck is not advancing, please refresh your browser. That typically resolves the problem. If you have any other technical problems, please use the dialogue tab on the webinar console to contact us. And with that, I turn it over to Mark to begin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for having us, and thank you for Advisor Perspectives for not only hosting great webinars like this, but all you do to help the advisor community. Very much appreciate it. My name is Mark Schoenbeck. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Kestra Financial. I'm responsible for advisor engagement and our business consulting team. For those of you that might not know us, Kestra Financial is a national hybrid RIA and wealth management platform headquartered in Austin, Texas. We have the privilege of serving about 1,700 advisors across the country. We have a very deliberate business plan. We do not want to be all things to all people. We would rather work with a smaller number of larger growing firms that candidly are run by people who we like and like us and want to be a part of a bigger community. So that's the blurb on Kestra, not the reason we are here. We are here to share some great best practices on the use of social media in your brand building and in your marketing and even in your client retention, which we'll get to here in a second. And we have the great privilege of cherry picking three great Kestra advisors who have a wealth of experience and knowledge on this subject, and I'm super eager to get introduced to you so we can start this conversation. So I know Bob gave you a very quick high-level intro on these three amazing advisors. I'm going to go a touch deeper with you. We'll get them introduced, and then we will kick this thing off. So first off, Ted Jenkins, CEO and co-founder of Oxygen Financial in Atlanta. Ted is one of the most prolific creative marketing minds I have met in my 25 plus years of being in this industry. He is a marketing genius. He is a thought leader. I would say he is an early adopter, but that wouldn't be fair because he's actually creating stuff that everybody is choosing to adopt early. And so just super fortunate to have him here with us. Tremendous amount of experience, sought after speaker on this subject. And so excited to talk to Ted. Once we have talked to Ted, we're going to kick it over to Liz Hand, who is an owner and an advisor at Pleasant Wealth in Canton, Ohio. Liz and her business have done a great job of growing, are very focused on a specific niche. And Liz has been somebody who's been extremely brave to go out and try a lot of different things. She has really boomed her experience on YouTube, has a very active YouTube channel with over 4,000 subscribers, and it's been really fun over the years kind of watching that journey unfold and to see her success on that front. And then last but not least, Derek Jackson, owner and managing advisor at Raleigh Wealth Management in Flagstaff, Arizona. Derek got his business up and running in 2020. And so I think one of the things that we try to do is bring some diversity to the crew here in experience and expertise and background. The thing that I have enjoyed the most about watching Derek's online digital presence grow is that he's super authentic and real and clear in his messaging. And I think that appeals to a great number of people. It is definitely his secret weapon. And so he also has some interesting things I'll pick his brain on using digital and social media for client management and client retention, which I think is a little bit of a different twist on this than just a pure client acquisition or marketing brand building exercise. So with that, I'm going to get us to why we are here, which are these three awesome advisors. And we're going to start off with you, Ted. You've been in this space for a long time. You've tried a lot of things, you've created a lot of things, and you have had a lot of success in that journey. So, since joining Kestra back, I think in 2015, if I have my numbers right, your firm's added over $1 billion of assets. So something is working in your client acquisition strategy and your use of digital. So I would love to kind of have you lay some foundation for us and set up some framework for our conversation today. Maybe talk a little bit about the difference of push versus pull marketing. And you have an extremely solid brand that is quickly going international. And so I'd love to get your perspectives on what it's taken and how long it's taken to get you to where you're at.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for having me on today. And thanks to Advisor Perspectives. It's interesting because we started our firm in 2008. And when I started the firm, I'll tell everybody I had zero assets. When I say zero, I mean, I literally did not have one single client, but I told myself I was never going to pay another plate licker to come to a dinner seminar and eat a meal and then potentially become a client. And so at that time, 14 years ago, I tried to figure out everything and anything that I could about social media, digital media, and how to create marketing where leads would come to me. So last year, Mark, we brought in $300 million of new assets without an acquisition. Okay, so I say that again, all organically. And I would tell everybody on here that you have to think about this in two ways. There's what I call to be push marketing or what's called to be pull marketing. And another way that you could be thinking about this is the difference between branding and lead generation. And they are very different, although branding will lead to lead generation. And so if you use the old analogy of the golden goose and the golden egg that everybody wants on this call is people that have $1 million+, they're ready to take action, and maybe they want to do something with you. Maybe it's a 401k rollover, maybe they inherited money, maybe you're in the space of doing 401k plans and an RFP is out there, whatever it may be, you want to acquire those assets. And so the question is, how will you ultimately get them? Well, certainly you can spend money today, and it is part of the strategy that we use to go buy leads or buy sources through digital marketing or other avenues where you can purchase people who become clients. Now, some of you on here may be saying, well, I get all my clients from referrals, but is it $300 million worth or $100 million worth? But branding over the long term, Mark, is really the key. And it is the key inside of doing a lot of the social media platforms and the other things that we've done because it's all about pull marketing. Because ask yourself, do you want to chase a lead that 3 other advisors are buying? Or do you want somebody to come to your website, somebody to call you on the phone and say, I am ready to do business? And I always felt that the best way to do this, Mark, is to get people to come to me and say, I'm ready to do business with Oxygen. So the name Oxygen Financial was intentional back in 2008. The last 5 letters are XY Gen. They're capitalized. I think I was the first XY Gen firm around before other people started doing it. And I said, I'm okay going after this space. Well, guess what? They're a lot older and they have a lot more money now. And people come at us because of that brand and the social media that we've done. So it's a balance here, Mark, when you look at your marketing dollars. But I would tell people the biggest mistake I see advisors make is they underinvest either time-wise or money-wise in their business to generate long-term pull strategies with their brand and social media because they get impatient. It's going to take you at least 12 months, but in some cases, it's going to take you 2 years to really get traction until people are like, wait a minute, this person's around and they want to do it. I'll give you one example, Mark, and I'll take a break here, is that 6-7 years ago, we decided to start podcasting, but I didn't want to do a money podcast. So I created a podcast called The Shrimp Tank. It's not the Shark Tank, it's the Shrimp Tank. And what we do on the Shrimp Tank is we interview high successful entrepreneurs here in Atlanta. And we started it. We obviously had nobody listening to the podcast, but I was using it as new business development to get in front of business owners that I wanted to talk to. Well, over time, it's become a pull strategy because we've done 300 plus episodes. Everybody knows about it in Atlanta. I get 20,000 downloads a month. And now people just find me. They go, hey, we hear you're the guy that knows about entrepreneurs and how to help them with taxes and other things. Like, I don't even have to try. And I get in front of anybody that I want, Mark. Recently, I interviewed Tony Horton, who's the founder of P90X. So I get those kind of interviewees on there now. So it's a long game. Just be patient, but it's going to take you at least a year, maybe 2, to get the pull stuff coming.
Yeah, and so you hit on a couple of things, Ted, that we see all the time here. And I just want to reiterate. One, you got to invest in it. So many advisors view marketing as an expense and they skimp on it and don't dedicate a budget to it. But you really need to view it as an investment with a return, that if you're doing it right, you should get a return. But then your comments just around, you got to stick with it. I can't tell you how many advisors, have looked for that silver bullet and think that it's going to happen. And if you want to go way back, there's probably still people with a closet full of cold cowboy tapes in their, in their closet. But it is an investment on that. Look, to reinforce making this interactive, there is a question here from Lewis around the fact that he, has had a website for 10 years and doesn't think that he can confirm a single inquiry from that. I definitely have some thoughts on what might be leading to that. But when you think about your lead nurture capability, Ted, and bringing people to your site and collecting information, can you give us a couple tips on that front?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for everybody on here, if you haven't really taken a deep dive on your Google Analytics, I recommend you leave the webinar today and actually understand what's happening with your website. As beautiful as you think you want your website to look, it's actually largely irrelevant to me. What's relevant is, does your website convert? And so if you don't have a mechanism to figure out how many people are coming to your website and how many people converted, fire the people that are doing your website. And I say that pleasantly because that is the game. The game is, if you own a department store, you want people to come into the store, but if they don't buy anything, your store really doesn't make sense. The same is true with your website. And if you have a specialty, I might recommend buying a different URL than the name of your company and creating what's called to be a landing page or a splash page. A lot of people call it different things. And then you can use that page, or if you all want to write this down, you can use what's called to be 301 redirects, and you can redirect different URLs to different URLs. But I've been a big fan over the years, Mark, of building landing pages through separate URLs, and I create campaigns that are specific to it so I can generate leads. If you can't confirm a single inquiry, either something is wrong with the website. It should go through like a jot form or something that comes right to you. If it's not, I'd either talk to your web people and get that. You've got to know that, or otherwise the website isn't working.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's probably a good segue here to kick over to Liz. The other thing that comes to mind for me on the website front that we see a lot is a couple of things. One, are you clearly stating the type of clients that you serve, right? So Ted talked about taking a chance early on and going after a very defined niche market. And most advisors freak out when they hear niche market, but especially in a digital world, the more defined your ideal client is, your ideal persona is, the more you can target messaging. Because as you're out searching, if you're just got a generic website that looks and sounds and feels like everybody else, you are not going to be found. You need to come up with a way to get to your very specific audience, which is something that Liz and her firm has done extremely well in knowing who they want to serve and how they go about serving that group. And so, Liz, maybe on the fly here, I'm going to throw that to you and what your take is on that question. And then after that, maybe talk to us a little bit about your experience with YouTube and content creation and the journey that you've kind of gone down that road and some best practices on that front.
Sure. Well, it's really good to be here with you all. You are catching me in the first year of a G2 buyout of a practice. And so there is a way that I feel like I'm showing you the messy middle of this. And that's good. That's how things work. They evolve over time. So a couple of years ago, I was resurfacing after having a baby, my second child. And I was 30. I'd been in the industry for a while, and I just felt like I wasn't getting very much traction with new clients that I wanted to, and decided that I wanted to do a podcast. And my brother, who I work with, said, you know what, you're great on video. Why don't you try video? So started looking up how to create an interesting YouTube video, watched that for a while, started dabbling in it. I'm a pretty creative person, so I really enjoy the process of creating something new. And in the process of doing that, and this converges right with the niche that we're opening up, so I am answering that question, Mark. But as I was doing that, I started looking into the SEO, how that worked with YouTube, and YouTube connected to Google, search and see what is it that people are looking up, what kind of content can I create that will actually just be organically watched on YouTube, the second biggest search engine. So a lot of stuff on there about social security, and we had gone through the horse's mouth training, so I knew a lot about it, could kind of riff on it a little bit, came up with a specific structure of how I go through creating content, 3 bullet points, how I intro, how I exit, all of that. And realized that kind of the convergence of all of this, I am most at ease working with women stepping into retirement alone. And so when I started off by saying, you're kind of catching me in the messy middle, the practice was started by my dad and was traditional broker-dealer practice, kind of serving all clients at different places. So if you go to my website right now, it does not show that niche. It does show retirement planning, but, pretty general. And so we're in the process of switching over and announcing, and a lot of our marketing has been specific to this community and really getting the word out. So connecting YouTube, got a lot of search engine there, created a Facebook group, a private community for women to come to after they see the YouTube video, where I can start individualized personal conversations with them. And I thrive really well on those individualized conversations.
That is awesome. Yeah, if you're watching, I would encourage you to go out to YouTube, look up Liz Hand and find her page. It's very cool to have watched from the early days of very basic video to now full-blown production. It's been pretty cool. All right, so, and I'll come back to you here, Liz and Ted, but let's give Derek a shot here. Derek, founding your firm in 2020 and kind of standing up your brand, you've been on a hard charge here to get your word out in a digital fashion. As I mentioned before, I think the thing that I have always appreciated about what Derek's doing online, heavy LinkedIn, starting to use YouTube, is he's always very authentic, right? You speak from the heart in a very, pure, clean terms and not filled with industry jargon, which has been awesome. I also know that you're a little bit of a data guy, so we had a question in the chat around leads and tracking. So, share with us a little bit about your experience on the content that you have put out, what's been received well, what's been overlooked, and from, share a little bit around how you track that and how you use that when you're creating your content.
Yeah, so thank you, Advisor Perspectives, and Mark and Liz and Ted. So I don't have a regular cadence that I work on for viewing how much things are looked at, but primarily what I use is LinkedIn, and then I'm also dabbling in YouTube as well, and we're making client-specific videos and then also videos for the public. But I do go in and look It's very easy to look at on LinkedIn. You just go to your profile and go to your post, and you can check how many impressions you get. And the authentic content that I create is easily 10 or 15-fold more viewed by my audience than the, I'll call it canned content that you get, that we push out through our website hoster. And so my largest impressions ever was when I was snow skiing with my daughter, and I took a picture of her going down a double black diamond. And so once I realized that stuff that I create, typically a photo is attached to it and a quick note about current events. Once I figured that out, it just drove me to, on the regular, 2 or 3 times a week, to create regular, authentic content and try to push that out. And then I did see in the chat how much of the marketing budget somebody should use towards, or how much other budget should they use towards marketing. And I'll answer that 2 ways. One, I spend $0. I think I pay a host for the website, and my daughter actually edits my YouTube videos for me. And so she gets paid with room and board. But the most important thing is time. And I create all of my own content. I use very simple props. I use my cell phone and a microphone and a light. And I do generally one take. And so in how much time do I spend? I've spent an incredibly small percentage of my week creating content, but I think it's really important for us to do that. And I'll just tell a quick story. When I first got in the business back in 2004, I was told by a long-term advisor that I needed to put a business card size ad in the newspaper every single week. And then after the first year, I could move it to every other week. But that legitimized me in the eyes of the community. Well, then it went to a website. You really had to have a website to legitimize yourself in the eyes of the people you're trying to serve. And I think today you have to have a social media presence of some sort. And to Ted's point, that social media effort is going to push people towards your website, and then you can get the data from Google and figure out, make sure everything's working together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why don't we, we'll use that as a jumping off point. We'll come back to Liz and then Ted on the question of marketing budget. Curious to get your takes on that. So Liz?
At present, we are not spending anything on our marketing budget. There was a period of time where it maybe was 1%, but not much.
Okay. Ted, I have a feeling you might have a slightly different answer.
No, look, there's only 2 ways to do this for everybody out there, and I think you're hearing it from Liz and Derek. You're either going to spend money or spend time. There's no other way about it. So you got to look at, the value of your time, because you can do this with spending no money and put your time into it or spending money. We still do some general layered branding in Atlanta, in addition to some other things that we do. And I'd say normally it was higher, Mark. In the early days, it might have been 10% of our revenue, and then that scaled down to 2 to 3% now. But we were heavy investors, and part of it, I sold part of my business for a significant multiple. Is that y'all have to decide how much you're valuing the cash flow today, and if you're building a lifestyle business or if you're building something that you're thinking about exiting. And they may be very different models, but growing your compound annual growth on your revenue is very significant if you're thinking about selling your business for a progressive multiple.
Yeah, and look, we're talking digital here, but oftentimes when we're consulting with advisors around their marketing efforts and their marketing budgets, many advisors are doing some sort of still client events or trying to get in front of clients. That would be all inclusive in that. Ted, you and I have had conversations in the past. Why don't you just take a minute or two, talk a little bit about paid advertising online, what your take is on that. And I'm sure we have some people that are curious on that front.
Yeah, so I would tell everybody on here, and I love what Liz is doing, because you can become a celebrity for sure on YouTube. I wouldn't want everyone here not to discount traditional media still, that, television still has a massive impact, as does radio to a degree on people. I've had the good fortune, Mark, the last 8.5 years of being the weekend expert on CNN's Headline News. It doesn't make the phone ring every day, but it upscaled me into people that had 5 million or 10 million, because I just want to say people, in the end, people do business for two reasons. They trust you and they like you. And so like what you're hearing Liz and Derek talk about with that content, people organically on the internet are deciding, boy, I trust them and I like them. And, that's what happened to me on television as well. And it upscaled the firm in a significant way. On the paid side, Mark, the number one thing I'm doing now is Google Screened. I think it's a huge mistake for people not to look at Google Screened. When you think about the organic SEO that Liz was talking about, when people do a search, there is organic ranking on there. There are sponsored ads, and you'll notice at the top now something called Google Screened, and it is a low-cost way to do it. But if you're clever at running Facebook ads, and we are, an example now is I'm running heavy advertising into car dealerships, because the average car dealer is going to make 3.3 million this year, and we have some specific strategies we use for them. And when COVID hit, we did some very specific things under the CARES Act that generated leads at probably $17 or $18 a lead. In the end, hopefully I make everyone laugh, although I can't see you laugh. It would behoove you over time to become a better copywriter than a better money manager. So if you like managing money, no problem. You should do it. If you want to make a lot of money, my opinion is become a better marketer and copywriter than becoming a money manager, and you'll make a lot more money. I'm not telling you it's a path you have to go. I just focused my energy a lot more on, I'm a better copywriter than I am a money manager. So Google Screened is good right now. We do heavy stuff on that. We still run Facebook and Instagram ads. That's worked really well for us. But you got to be good at copywriting. And again, Mark, you got to do it for 6 to 12 months. If you don't A/B test your strategy, you're just going to waste your time.
Yeah. So look, we'll put a thank you, Ted. That's awesome. We'll put a bow on the percentage. There's a lot of benchmarking out there in the industry that you should be at least in the 3 to 5% of your top line revenue going toward your marketing efforts. Is going to be a little bit unique, obviously, for everybody on that front. Awesome. All right. I want to ask a couple more questions here, and then we'll knock off the other questions that are coming in through the chat. So keep those coming. Derek, I mentioned this in the intro. Want to kick it back to you. One of the things that I know you have shared with me in the past is the scale and the leverage you're getting out of some of your digital assets and content as it relates to managing clients, existing clients, and retention. So, a lot of this is about how do we find and attract new clients. You're finding that your efforts here are also paying dividends related to retention and client management. Can you share a little bit with us on that?
Yeah, so this is something, thanks, Mark, you suggested when I first onboarded with Kestra to consider doing, and it has been just the best time saver for me. And so anytime there's a major event in the marketplace, I can quickly go out and make a video, and we've already got the site set up, and so we email that to our clients. So anytime, the latest example is I rebalanced all of our accounts due to the market volatility that we've seen. And I just created a video and shot that to all of the clients that have an account that got rebalanced. And it has really dropped our incoming calls on things like, hey, why did I see a trade in my account? It dropped those to 0. And I just also wanted to mention that you've done a really good job of putting this panel together, because Ted is building a business that I would never want to build. And so it's important to get the different perspectives. I'm very much trying to leverage my time to work as efficiently as possible so that I can travel and do things like that. And he's doing a totally different approach. So, and then also we're getting ready to, if I would ever get the rest of my videos created on our website, we primarily work with 3 types of clients. And so we're going to have 3 silos when you go to our main page. And then as they click through, there'll be very customized videos targeting specifically that client and whatever their needs are. And it's me talking directly to them about whatever it is that they're looking to solve.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So we got a couple questions in here that I know you all can weigh in on, because all 3 of you are pretty prolific users of LinkedIn. So Kenneth Cooper had a question. Do you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator? And then the second question was, would you say this is from Anthony, would you say you use LinkedIn more for finding and connecting with new prospects or just for sharing multimedia? So I'll throw those two questions out to any of you to grab.
Mark, I don't mind giving my input on the direct lead side. We're direct marketers on LinkedIn. We use, there are several pieces of, I would just call them Autobot piping. I know it sounds like a weird term, but it allows you to automate campaigns as you plug into LinkedIn. So on Sales Navigator, it's pretty easy once you're in there to search for people who basically have left their job in the last 90 days if you're in the rollover market. And you can get as esoteric as you want with that list. And then we write copywriting through targeted campaigns to plug into second and third degree connections. And that can range anywhere from a company like Rivian that goes public and we're doing IPOs to searching the WARN reports of our state, which are the retraining notification messages when companies are getting laid off, and then trying to target those people when we believe the 401k rollovers are in motion. So we're pretty heavy users of it.
Awesome. Liz, any thoughts on your use in LinkedIn?
Yeah, just for someone working with women entering retirement, LinkedIn is not a great place for me to spend a lot of time. However, I still keep it live because I find that there are existing clients there that even if they're not directly working with me, I want their buy-in on the firm, and I want them to hear how I think about life and how I approach investments. So it has been a way to bridge the connection for the clients that have been working with my dad, maybe business owners, maybe actively working, and just to build a bridge.
Awesome. I love it. Look, and I'm going to hammer this theme as I hear it pop up in this Q&A. There are a couple real powerful things to me. Again, the focus when it comes to marketing is massively important, right? So Ted is talking about creative ideas that are very, very focused on specific moments or events or life events. Liz is talking about, hey, I know my audience, which tells me they are not hanging out on LinkedIn, which then means I don't need to spend time there. And so one of the most powerful yet counterintuitive things I learned about marketing a long time ago is that if you're marketing well, you're probably turning away as many people as you're attracting. And if you can get to a place where you are attracting the types of advisor, the types of clients that you want to do business with, that is a home run, because we all grow up in this business and try to be all things to all people. And that is your quickest way to marketing failure, is that if you don't have that focus on that front. So Liz, I will put the question to you, and then we'll shoot it to Ted as well. You know, Derek kind of volunteered it before. When you think about the content you have posted on LinkedIn, what are the posts, or what is the post that's gotten the most views and feedback?
So this is the life coaching side of me. There's two posts that have happened. One was I talked about Good Job Mom coffee, where I was using some just unconscious spending when I was in my postpartum stage, and it was like I'd get my kids off to school, and so I was talking about subconscious spending habits, and that connected really well broadly. Also, recently I had one where I talked about Queen of Deflection. And again, it's just a human connection of how some of the habits that we have can keep us from fully getting the momentum that we want. So that would connect more to a business owner and isn't necessarily money, but those are the two that have launched the furthest on LinkedIn.
Love it. Ted?
Mark, since I started the blog back in 2008, I was a top 20 blogger for a good period of time. You're going to laugh at this, but the number one blog is actually how much should I spend on a bar mitzvah gift? I get over 1.5 million views a year on that blog, which is, I would have never thought that in a million years. And the top two videos right now is how to buy a used Tesla and how to buy I-bonds. I got absolutely crazy hits on I-bonds, but they were both the Tesla was pre all this stuff that's gone on, but the I-bonds was recent and relevant. And how much should you spend on a bar mitzvah gift? I always say it depends on how cheap your cousins are, but it certainly isn't $18 anymore. Let me say that. So
can I just tag on there?
Yes.
I noticed, so you never know what of your content's going to take off. And it's always helpful to have a turn down strategy, because my most prolific YouTube video right now is how to withdraw money from your 401k, which was in a series and it made sense in the time, but I get random reach outs, intro calls or whatever. So having a good turn down process and way for handling that is helpful.
So Liz, what is yours then? How do you do that? Because it's a fantastic point, but what does that sound like when I am calling you, asking you about my credit card debt and getting money on my 401k?
It comes in through a Calendly link, and I can see the reason, what they want to talk about, and then I have my admin send a cancellation. This is not a service we provide. Contact your HR person.
Nice. So Melissa has a question here that, again, I'll throw out to the group. Are you concerned ever about over-communicating by sharing too many videos or sharing them too often? And then, for all of you, do you only post on YouTube, or are you sending videos also via email? Ted's smiling and nodding. So Ted,
I'm laughing at it, Mark, because, hey, I'm going to make y'all laugh. And you could say you don't want to be the Kardashians, and maybe nobody does, but they're in people's faces all the time. And people say, oh, I'm sick of them. But you know what? They keep watching it. So I just tell you, people can't remember what they saw on social media yesterday. My viewpoint on it is I want to be in front of people as much as I can, as often as I can. So not everybody thinks that way, but I feel like, in a day or two, whatever people saw, they probably don't remember it. So it's just, so I post in different ways. I try to hit them with the angle of the axe mark, so it's not the same way all the time. So I can chop the tree down, if you will. But I certainly, look, the Kardashians are billionaires. There's a reason.
No doubt. No doubt. Like I view marketing and good brand building and marketing like compound interest. Right, it compounds over time, and you will hit a pivot point there where those returns really make a difference for sure.
And Mark, I'd like to add on to that as well. So, because of the algorithms in these social medias, even the people that you're connected with are not going to see every post that you do, and so they won't. If you post 5 times a day, they are not going to get 5 times a day notification from you. And then the second part of that question was, do we just post them, or do we also send videos? I am very selective of the videos I send to my clients, because when they get an email from me, I want them to open it, and I can't send them 5 a week and expect them to be watching them.
That's a great observation on segmenting how that happens. So there is a question in here from Tori Garber that selfishly I love. I have found that compliance takes 2 or more weeks to receive approval, which means by the time I get it out, it's not timely. How do you get around those challenges? So I will preface, and then I'll let all of you chime in, to say that at Kestra Financial, we do have a centralized compliance structure. So the beauty for us is that all the compliance and advertising requests come to us in a centralized, consistent fashion, where our advisors have a dedicated person who gets to know them and know the firm and know what their cadences are. And look, all 3 of these people have helped us as an organization get better and more responsive in our compliance. But, Ted, I'll start with you. We like to point to you a lot because you're prolific in all of this stuff, and we figured out a good way to work together. What's your take on this question?
Yeah. Change broker dealers? No, listen, in the end of the day, wherever you are, and it's one of the things I've appreciated in being at Kestra, is that if your compliance department is an automatic no, that's a real problem, right? You need to have a compliance department, and I'm sure Liz and Derek have experienced this, that may say, well, we may not be able to do that, but here's a solution on what we can do. And I would put part of the ball on all of you on the call, that not everybody in compliance understands the speed and the velocity at which these social media platforms are moving. And you're probably going to need to do some education for them, because they may know nothing about the platform. They may know nothing about what you're doing. And if you can explain it to them, I think more often than not, you will find reasonable people that can help you find a reasonable strategy. I have found over time that my compliance people, they don't always get it right away, but after we have a discussion, they're always thoughtful about this is a way that we could do this, and both of us will be protected.
Yeah. Liz, I know you've shared with me in the past, some of your learnings around the process of, getting your content ready, published through compliance. Can you reiterate some of those tips and tricks?
Yeah, I do everything through connection, one of my superpowers. And so one of the first things I do is become a friend of the compliance department and let them know that I'm on their side. And I also have vision for what I want to do. I often share that, like, how I understand their side of the coin and how I'm trying to, I'm usually not going into a lot of investment conversation. The style of conversation I'm having is very high level money, likely for you too. And that is a lot more friction free. And if I can have that conversation ahead of time with the compliance department and say, this is the style that I'm doing, this is how I'm going to move forward with it. What do you see? Any red flags? Always any red flags, to get their input, rather than feeling like I'm at odds with them. I feel like a lot of times we can get into a power dynamic with the compliance team as if they are against us. And they're just trying to do their job, and we are too, and so we can work together. So having a conversation ahead of time.
Nice. Derek, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I just think it's reps. The more you do it, the better you're going to be at staying in whatever box they want you to stay in. And then the more familiar they're going to be with your content, the more likely they are going to be to more expeditiously approve it. Our approval time was pretty long when we first started, but we get things turned around very quickly now. And I think it's because they know I'm not going to say or do anything that I'm not supposed to, because we've done this a bunch of times. And so I would just say do reps.
Yeah, we definitely hear that a lot. The more you do, the more you learn what you should and shouldn't be doing to stay safe, and then it becomes more efficient for everybody. Liz, Justin is asking, how many both quality and qualified contacts do you think you're bringing in per month?
I would say maybe 2, and that might not seem like very high, but that's good for my firm. The path that people follow, if this is referencing YouTube, which I don't know if it is or not, the path that I want people to follow is to go from there into the Pleasant Financial Conversations on Facebook. And then I'm trying to connect with them. So by the time they get to me, they're pretty much already sold, ready to work with me. They understand how my process works. So that's a good number for me.
Awesome. Ted, I know you threw out a number around how much new assets you brought in. Wow, everybody with what you think your organic lead flow is?
It ranges between 25 and 30 a month. And the average client last year was 900,000. So they're not hubcap kickers. And it reminded me what Liz was just talking about in general, that if you're an all referral person on here, you said I get all my clients from referrals. The social media content that everybody's talking about here, Derek and Liz, it will help you immeasurably, as it has us, because if you give your clients content that is shareable and snackable, like easy to digest and easy to share, you're going to have referrals that will come out of the woodworks because your clients will have a story to tell. Without a brand and without this content, they have no story. And that's why, in part, your referrals aren't as high as they are today. And I'm sure that Derek and Liz will agree that your referrals will go up just because you're putting out this content.
Yeah, for sure. So Gary asked a question early on, and I was trying to wait to see if it organically kind of popped up, but it's an interesting one, and he's pointing it toward you, Ted, and I definitely have a take on it as well. Do you think it's possible to create a personal brand within a wirehouse channel? Let's just broaden it to say captive organization, right? There's a lot of captive firms out there that are not technically a wirehouse.
I say it's going to be very difficult. There are some platforms that are starting to offer independent chassis, but all of their policies are designed for the worst advisor. So, right, the policies are designed around the possible worst advisor and the dumbest thing that they could do out there. And that makes it hard for everybody. And I think it's a tough call, because a lot of the wirehouses are really high quality firms. But I think in the independent world, you just have a lot more flexibility and autonomy to disaggregate yourself from the brand of the company. And that's, it's just a personal choice. I do think if you own an independent firm, you can create your own personal brand within the brand of the firm. You can have both. Absolutely, 100%.
we help free a lot of people from a captive environment at Kestra. And I think one of the things that never ceases to amaze me is how well those organizations have done at convincing advisors that without their big corporate brand, they're not going to survive. And our experience has been that's the furthest thing from the truth. I'm a huge believer, like Liz, that this is a relationship business, and people do business with you because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And, you know, as much as we're talking about the importance of brand here, the reality, it is a relationship, and it is not the name on the door that ultimately leads them to want to do business with you. Dino's asking one of my all-time favorite questions in almost any one of these settings. What questions should we be asking that nobody has asked yet? I love that question. Who wants to tackle that one?
I'll jump in.
All right.
We talked a lot about where, but what? What are we sharing? And Ted alluded to some of the more technical content that's like specific to certain niches. And I'll just throw out there that, and actually Derek talked about this too, like heart matters. And so that's the authenticity piece. Remembering that these people want to be connected to the person that manages their money. And so finding ways to authentically show up online is huge. We don't have to be these huge polished machines that people like kowtow to. We can just be normal human beings. And so one post that I had recently, I actually put it on LinkedIn in case there'd be someone who wanted to see it. But it was inside my Facebook community that had a lot of resonance and reach out, was one about the emotional crescendo that we're in right now, and how just normalizing the process that when big market turbulence happens, we have an emotional reaction, and that's totally normal. And as long as we've done the work, then we can just go and remind ourselves to like shake it off and move on. And that type of communication, similar to how Derek is talking about shooting a quick video and emailing it out to reduce calls, it also just creates a lot of calm. And so that's like bringing your heart, the true authentic part of yourself, to your social media is crucial.
Love that. Ted or Derek, what question should we have asked that we haven't yet?
Mark, I think people should be asking, even though we're talking about social digital media, is this actually going to help me in my community, in my town, in my city to become a known quantity? And the answer is far beyond your imagination. You know, clients today, to a degree, expect you to be much more than a financial advisor. I know Liz talks about being a life coach and a life advisor, but there's sort of this expectation that you just know people in town, you can help them find jobs, you can help find somebody to fix their roof. And in Atlanta, Mark, over time in here, from the things that I did, is that I get invited to be or at things that I would have never been invited to before, because people think maybe that I'm larger than I really am. And that's some of what this social media does. It's like, it's that whole story of William Wallace, you're 7 feet tall, and it's like, you really aren't. But I got to go to a dinner a couple weeks ago and sit with Dan Cathy and Arthur Blank. I mean, you're talking about titans of business, and I'm just a neophyte, but I'm in the room. And the fact that I'm in the room makes me relevant. And you get on lists and things like that, and you can say lists don't matter. That's for the people that aren't on the list. Lists do matter because people read them, and that's how they search on the internet. Reviews matter, and all of these things, you won't always be able to put your finger on it. So a lot of advisors, Mark, that go, I got to measure my ROI. Some of this is extremely difficult to measure. You can't always say how or when or where it came from, but it's a connectable world today, and don't discount about it helping you becoming like the unofficial mayor of your community. You would be surprised how many people are watching your stuff that are stalkerish, that don't say anything, and 6 months later they'll be like, Liz, I watch all your videos. I mean, they just do. It's super weird, but that's just the way that it is today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Derek.
Yeah, and Mark, I would just add to this, bringing it back to referrals. How many referrals have you gotten and then the prospective client Googled you and couldn't find you, but they found Ted or Liz, right? And they were like, I don't know, I was looking for a financial advisor, but my friend told me this, this guy, but this other guy has got this huge presence. He's got videos out there, or gal, right? And it is hard to measure, but I think if you don't have a presence and you're probably getting referrals that are never calling you, they're never going to your website, and they're never walking in your door.
Yep, for sure. All right, we have 5-ish minutes left here, and we do have some questions left in the Q&A that I want to try to hit. So we're going to rapid fire here, and I'll let anybody who wants to raise a hand on any of these jump in. We'll try to knock these out. Chris is asking, tech tools do you use or recommend for video creation? So Liz, I know you're doing a bunch. What are you using on the tech side?
I use my iPhone and just a Rode mic to produce the videos. I think more important than the tech side of it is the setup, and that's behind me here. Oops. And just having a steady setup that you can just go and sit down and shoot. That makes it so much easier. The tech can be pretty basic.
Yeah. Rode being RODE for those of you that are not into microphones. So Stacy asked this question early on. How often should we be looking at our website? We rebranded in 2018. Should we take another look soon? So 2018 sounds like it's been about 4 years for Stacy. What would we suggest?
I don't mind answering just very quickly, Mark, on there that, we're heavy duty dive on our Google Analytics every 90 days because it's not always about rebranding your website. It's about shifting storyboards. Like, you can think whatever you want about your website, but Google will actually tell you what pages are being hit. And that may give you a reconsideration about how you order the pages or the way that you move the flow of traffic. Google has a flow of traffic on its website, so you can see how people move through your website. Once you know that, wouldn't it make sense to organize your website the way that they're flowing? So, that's what I would, consider. It's not always about spending more money. It's about making better use of the data.
Yeah, I'll echo that. If you're not using Google Analytics, it's something that you need to be familiarizing yourself with. We put our advisors through a little training course on that. So we're going to go ahead with 5 minutes left here. We're going to go ahead and run one last poll question, and we'll take a couple more questions while we run the poll question, but we want to give you a chance to answer that. Question from Rob Levine. Can you discuss good compliance solutions for archiving? Parentheses for RIA. Again, we at Kestra all are on a centralized compliance system. We use Smarsh for all of our archiving of social and communications. I candidly am not aware or familiar with other third-party tools out there for that. I don't know if anybody on the panel is. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's not something that we deal with. LinkedIn posting. Do the algorithms penalize those that put in posts that with links that take the viewer away from the LinkedIn site? Will LinkedIn not push original posts for someone who has posts that don't keep the viewer on LinkedIn? Anybody familiar enough with the LinkedIn algorithm to answer that one?
Mark, I just make 2 comments on this. One is that, and I'll get the website for everybody on here for the replay, but if you go to linkedin.com/sales/SSI, it sounds like Social Security, but it's SSI. LinkedIn actually tracks your score. And so one of the things that you need to realize is that if your score is low, like, and Derek was mentioning this, a lot of your stuff, it's going to be irrelevant to begin with, even if it is pretty good. Because LinkedIn knows you're actually not social, and so consequently, your stuff is less relevant. If you're posting to third-party sites, I recommend using a piece of software called Sniply, snip.ly, and it's basically a slider that will reroute a call to action funnel back to your website on the third-party website. It's pretty slick, actually. But if you're posting to, like, go to the Wall Street Journal or CNBC and somebody goes there, how do you give them a boomerang effect to get back to your website to become a lead? Sniply is like an insertion slider, Mark, that will allow people to get back to your website.
Okay. Awesome. Love that. Liz, I see a question. I'm not sure if you just answered it. What video editing software are you using?
I just used the one that came with the Apple computer. I can't even think of what it was. And then a couple of years ago, I switched over to Oxley and just had them do it on my behalf. Great use of money. Super easy.
Excellent. All right. One last one, and then we're going to hand this back over to Bob to wrap us up. Barry was asking, how does an advisor like me hire a capable marketer for Google Screen and Facebook? So thoughts on outsourcing marketing help?
Well, we had hired an intern from a local college. He just graduated, so we've got to find somebody else, but that's where we got our talent from.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you some of the stories we hear from advisors on leveraging interns and people who are more tech savvy that come in and can work wonders for free or super cheap, I think is a great idea and great outlet. So, all right, I think we're looking good here. I want to give my sincere thanks and appreciation to the three of you, Ted, Liz, Derek. Phenomenal job. A ton of great ideas and things to use from this call. And then Bob, one last thank you from all of us for having us and giving us the opportunity to share our perspectives. And thank you to Advisor Perspectives.
Well, you are welcome. And Mark, thank you very much for the kind words that you said about us back in the beginning of this webinar. We actually still have some questions that are in the queue, and the folks from Kestra will get back to you individually, either via an email or a phone call. I want to thank our presenters once again, and I want to thank everyone for attending on behalf of the teams at Kestra and all its partner firms and everyone at Advisor Perspectives. We wish you a happy and healthy summer. Thank you.